Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn about how we can control the return types or the result types. There might be a few scenarios where we have the inheritance on the return types. In this example, I have a person DTO where it has a first name, last name and the gender. Person DTO is being inherited by two other classes which are male DTO and female DTO, and it is been setting one of the properties on the constructor. So this is the inheritance that I am talking about, the result and return types. And here I have written the two test cases, one for the male DTO and another one is female DTO. What I am expecting is when I say mapper.toMale, I am expecting person DTO, but the internal object that was created should be a male DTO. So that is my expectation. Let's see the current implementation. As part of the current implementation, two male and two female is returning the person DTO objects and taking the person DB object as a source. So if we see the implementation, both will be returning the person DTO. But my expectation here is to return male, and in this case, it should be a female DTO object. Then how can we achieve it? There is one alternative where we can create our return object using the object factory. But in this case, I need both two male and two female. So if we see the implementation, even for the female, it is used the male DTO constructor, which is not what we are expecting. You might say that we can create another object factory for the female, but Mapstruct can't determine which object factory needs to be used because in the both methods, return type is same. So it can't determine which one to be called. So in those scenarios, we can use bean mapping. How are you going to notify the Mapstruct to use male object for the two male method and female object for the two female method? So let's create a bean mapping. As part of the bean mapping, we need to provide result type. In this case, male DTO dot class, and in case of two female method, we need to use result type as female DTO. Let's take the implementation. If you see the implementation, now two male method return DTO object which was created using the male DTO. In earlier, it was using the person DTO, but now it's been using male DTO. And in case of the two female method, it's using female DTO and returning the person DTO. This is what we are expecting it. Let's run the test case. I have already created the test cases. Here is the person DB object, which is a source, and the mapper. And as part of the before method, which is being called for each and every test case, I am setting up the couple of the properties on the source object, and I added assertions for the DB object and the mapper, which should not be null. In case of male test, so we are calling the two male method and expecting person DTO, and we have written the assertions to ensure that the class is male DTO, the object class is male DTO, and the gender has been set to male, and two other assertions for the existing properties validation, which is first name and the last name. And in case of the female test, it's the similar test case where we are calling the two female method and we are receiving as a person DTO and validating the class, the object class is male DTO and the gender has been set to female. Let's run the test case. If you see the test case, both male test and female test has been passed. There might be few scenarios where we would like to control the object creation. What I mean is, here the male DTO object has been created directly. Even the female DTO object created directly. To control the return DTO object, we have the object factory. As we have seen, object factory can't be used in this scenario. Then how can I create the object factory for either male DTO or the female DTO? In such cases, we can use another class where we can create the objects either male DTO or the female DTO and map them using the uses property. I have created the DTO factory. I would like to create object factory only for the female DTO. This is just for the showcase where we can combine both default and the object factories together. So as part of the DTO factory, I'm creating the female DTO object using the new keyword, and I would like to set some other property. Let's say created by. I have created the created by property and created setter and getter for the created by. Now set the created by as a factory. So this is just for our test cases where it has been created from. So update the female test case. Here created by will not be available because we are using the person DTO. So we have to use the downcasting. It is not available. So we need to downcast. So I have added the female DTO to check it. And here I'm expecting factor. Now if we check the mapper implementation, it's still using the female DTO. And how can we instruct Mapstruct to use the object factory in this case? All we need to do is use uses and mention our object factory. In this case, DTO factory, and save it. And now if we check the implementation, the DTO factory instance has been created at the class level and it's been used for the toFemale method where it's supposed to create the female DTO. And in case of the male DTO, it's using the default way of by creating new keyword. So now let's run the test case. Both test cases has been successfully passed, which means in case of the female DTO test, it's been created from the factory. What if I have the multiple ways of creating the same object? So both the methods inside the object factory are returning the same DTO object. In that case, the Mapstruct can't determine which method to be used. Due to the ambiguity, Mapstruct can't create the object. So in such cases, we need to use @named annotation and provide a qualified name. So in this case, I created for the female as female. Now, the Mapstruct doesn't have any ambiguity because one method is having name scope and another one doesn't have it. In this case, we have only two methods. One is with qualified, another one is doesn't have the qualified. So the Mapstruct would be using the unqualified method, in this case some other, to create the object. So let's go to the implementation. If we see it, it's using the sum method. But in this case, we would like to use named method. So we need to provide the qualified by. So here I'm using the qualified by name and I'm providing female. Qualified by name is case sensitive. So we need to use the same keyword that had been used in the factory. So if we see the implementation, now the toFemale method is using the female object factory.female method, which is annotated with named annotation instead of the sum method. So let's run the test case and ensure that nothing has been broken. Both the test case has been passed, both male and female test case has been passed. Today we have learned how we can use the Mapstruct when we have a return type or the result type having inheritance. Like the male object, like the person DTO has inheritance and person DTO is inherited by male DTO and the female DTO. In such cases, we can use the bin mapping to provide the exact required return type or the result type using the bin mapping. And we can use the object factories and it can be invoked using the uses property at the mapper annotation. And if you have any ambiguity, use the named annotation to provide the qualified name and it can be called or it can be used at the respective bin mapping using the qualified by name property. That's all for now. Thank you.